Hey everyone, we are here again and we have another special guest. It is our Expo expert interview tonight. The man, the legend, that guy, Michael Fabiano with Sports Illustrated. And we are coming up next. All right, we are very honored and excited to have Michael Fabiano of Sports Illustrated. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. Always a pleasure to see you. More excited to see you back at the Expo this year. You have been on more IR, I think, than
I
like
know,
you.
dude.
I mean, it's just crazy. Every time I talk to you, like, oh, this shoulder's bad, that shoulder's bad.
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah.
So
A few
welcome
years
back.
ago,
Are you 100% healthy again?
I mean, I don't know.
Are you expected to be in camp? That's what we want to know.
I'll be in Canton.
Okay, that's all that matters.
If I went to a camp, I'd probably injure myself again very quickly, probably in the first day. But yeah, a few years ago, I was set to come out, and then I had a bike accident, and I broke my wrist and tore my left rotator cuff. And then I think the next year I came out, and then last year I was supposed to come out, and then I friggin' tore my right rotator cuff. I'm like, son of a biscuit. I mean, like, and
Yeah.
what's funny too is like my dad has had multiple shoulder surgeries. I have cousins who've had multiple. So like the Fabianos do not have good rotator cuff strength.
So there's no pitchers. There are no starting pitchers in the major leagues if they're named Fabiano.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think there's any athletes. There was a Browns offensive lineman. I think his name might have been Anthony Fabiano.
No, okay.
I don't know about any other Fabianos who are in the sports world. We're all short Italians, and we're probably not going to be doing much except for maybe jockeying a horse in a race. I have no idea.
There you go.
We're not a big people, but
Yeah.
so I will be out there. And it's funny too because like lately, like the expos have been falling right on my birthday.
Mm.
So, my birthday's on August 10th. So like, I'm always either like there or leaving, like there and leaving on the day of my birthday, which is the case, this
Again this year.
August. So yeah.
Gotcha. Well, we'll be definitely wishing you a happy birthday on the 10th when you come in. Michael, let's take a few years step back. Let's get the blue, that kind of stuff where we flash back to the days when Michael Fabiano was not playing fantasy football, but was introduced to the game. What year was it? Who got you into it? How did it all start? This wonderful, crazy career that you have had. When did it all begin, man?
So it was back in like 98. And
Okay.
I was working for a company called Environmental Data Resources, EDR,
Oh, okay.
and it had nothing to do with sports.
Yeah.
And I went to school for TV, radio, mass media, etc., trying to become a sportscaster. Like that was always what I wanted to do, was like be on ESPN and be a
Right,
sportscaster.
sure.
That was like always what I wanted to do because too small to be an actual athlete. Although for a guy who's like, right around 5'8", don't let Bob Harris tell you, he'll say that I'm not. I had a mean jumper, but that's neither here nor there. And I tore my ACL too, so that's another damn injury that I've had. That was a long time ago. So my manager at the time, his name is Ken Schaefer, was like, "Hey, do you want to play in a fantasy football league?" I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm a big sports fan,
Yeah.
and at that point, that's when it's like right around when you started to see online products.
Mm-hmm.
We did a league. I believe it was baseball and basketball. We were looking at USA Today box scores.
Oh, yeah,
And the
sure.
first football one, I think it was on Yahoo.
So Yahoo was the first one I remember.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so we a kind of a funny story. My dog just came and hung out with me.
Yeah.
I drafted the team. I remember the name of the team. It was the Archangels because Michael, the Archangel.
Yeah.
And I am a good Catholic boy,
Good.
or at least I'm a
Should
Catholic,
be.
right? So I remember my quarterback was Brad Johnson, and it was
Wow.
the year that Brad Johnson got hurt and Randall Cunningham took over, and I picked up Randall Cunningham off waivers and ended up having a massive season.
Yeah.
I had Terrell Davis was the first pick I ever made, and then I, of course, worked with Terrell Davis at NFL Network and became friends with him. Really great guy.
Yeah. Right.
And that year, I traded Jerome Bettis and Michael Irvin, who I also ended up working with at NFL Network, for Fred Taylor, who I have met through the years.
Right.
And I was actually able to talk to both TD and Fred when I was at the network, and I was like, "You guys were like my backfield in '98, and I won the championship. The Archangels won the championship." And I kind of just being a sports nut, I just sort of thought maybe this is my way in.
Yeah, right.
Because it would listen, I'm when I tell you that I would dress up in a suit and I probably look a doofus because it probably didn't fit very well. And I went to WFSB in Hartford. I went to every single television station with a resume and everything else, and I had nothing on the resume except for my my communications degree in TV and mass media. And
Yeah,
I no, I was like, damn, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to get in
right.
hard. And at one point, I was thinking like I was just going to be an account executive at EDR, and that was going to be the end. But my best friend Dan was like, "Dude, you can't give up. You've been a sports fan since I can remember, and
Right.
best friends since we were 5." And so I just kept plugging away, and I'm like, maybe fantasy sports is my way in. So I started, believe it or not, writing a sports column in the newsletter of this environmental data company.
I love it.
It was like 6 pieces of paper stapled together, and I would write a sports column for it, and
Mhm.
I wrote about everything. I wrote about Tiger Woods. I wrote about, I mean, like no Bobby Knight, whatever I wrote about, just sports. And
Right.
then when the internet happened, suddenly you have some amateur platforms that you can use to
Mhm.
put out your stuff. So I created a mailing list, email mailing list, and I probably had 150 people on there.
Right.
And every single time I wrote a new article, and I think it was on like esports.com, it was something
Mhm.
like that.
Okay.
I would send out the link to everyone, and you get page views, etc. And at the same time, I was sending out resumes wherever there was these fantasy sports openings, and there weren't a lot.
Right,
It's
sure.
98.
Right, yeah.
So I don't remember what the website was that I found the listing for commissioner.com. And if you
Mm.
don't know commissioner.com, that was CBS Sports Line.
Right.
Commissioner.com, the Peter Pizarris and his fraternity brothers from Carnegie Mellon created what is the basis and the foundation of the CBS Sports Line
Mm.
product. And that product was like the best in the industry,
Right.
years and years ago. And so I I'll never forget it. Dave Hirsch, who also worked with Commissioner.com, reached out to me, and they were in Lower Manhattan. They're in Battery Park in that area, and down in
Mhm.
Manhattan, near the trade centers.
Mhm.
And so, he reached out to me. I went in for an interview. That's where I met Scott Engel,
Right.
who, if you're in the fantasy football world, you probably know Scott. He's been in the industry
Sure.
forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that point, I was doing basketball.
Mm.
So they wanted me to do all these basketball player profiles. And I said, okay, we could do that. And it ended up being between me and Tristan Cockcroft from ESPN.
Wow, another
We were the
well-known.
last 2 guys, and they ended up hiring Tristan. And Dave called me and said, "Listen, it came down to you and one other guy, and we went the other guy. Um, but can you do a little bit of basketball for us freelance?" I says, "Okay, that's something
Sure.
at least to put on my resume."
Right.
I'll never forget it. I was at my dad's house in Watertown, Connecticut. I was watching Yankees Red Sox game on the TV, and Dave called me after I had had a second interview. So I was told that I wasn't going to get the job twice, but they were going to use me freelance. And
Okay.
then it was a Sunday afternoon. I got this call from Dave, and he said, "Hey, listen, we actually couldn't decide between you and Tristan, so we're going to hire you both."
Oh, cool.
And so that was where I got my start.
Yeah.
And dude, I was making $38,000 a year, and I moved to Staten Island. I was taking the ferry back and forth,
Mhm.
and I mean, uh, we ended up getting moved down to the headquarters in Fort Lauderdale, CBS Sportsline headquarters in Fort Lauderdale in March, and then
Right.
unfortunately, 9/11 happened in September. If
Yeah.
that hadn't happened, I would have been on one of the ferries as the planes were hitting.
Oof.
So
Yeah, that's
yeah, so I
terrifying.
mean, me and Tristan and my friends that worked at the Commissioner, I mean, we would go there and grab lunch right in that area all the time.
Right.
So
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was there. The Yankees won the World Series against the Mets in 2000, and the whole like parade of champions, it went right through
Mhm.
Battery Park, and so I was there. That me and Tristan are big Yankees fans.
Yeah.
Tristan to this day is one of my best friends. He's a dear friend.
Oh, yeah.
Um, he does great work over at ESPN.
Yep.
So that's how it started. Like that's how it started. I remember I would do radio interviews and be nervous. Radio interviews, and oh my god! And then my first time on national television, I was the first fantasy analyst to be on one of the 4 major networks,
Right.
CBS Sports. It was me and Randy Cross and Gus Johnson. And I have the DVD of that show, and I look back on it now, and I was like, "Holy crap, I was awful." Dude, I had like the Caesar hair thing going on, like, and honestly,
Yeah.
like, I was like, "Holy, can I swear?" I mean, that was bad.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
It was bad.
Yeah.
And so now I look back at it and laugh because so many years later, I ended up, being on live television in the middle of halftime shows on NFL Network in front of millions and millions and millions of
Right.
people. And now, I mean, it's like nothing. I
Right.
mean,
For you, yeah,
who
it's
cares?
natural.
Right, exactly. I've spoken in front of big crowds. I mean, like, what? But it's so funny because, like, back then, you're like, "Ugh, I'm on the radio. Holy cow!" And my first TV uh, gig, Scott wasn't able to go. There was, I think his name was, I can't remember the guy's name. Rich, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was doing this fantasy football show, and it was shot in Minneapolis.
Mm.
And so Scott, who was like the lead guy at the time at Sportsline, would go and do that. But then one weekend he couldn't go, so I flew out there.
Mm.
And I never forget, I was talking about Aaron Brooks and Joe Horn,
From
and
the
I
same.
said that they had a great repertoire together and not a great rapport. And that, even to this day, this is 25 years later, still pisses me off that I got that wrong because I have OCD and it like makes me mental. But that was my first
Great.
experience. I think I want to say like Warren Moon or Eric Kramer. I don't know. I can't remember who was on the show.
Mhm.
But that was probably in 2001.
Okay.
And then we got moved down to Fort Lauderdale, and I was there for 5, 6 years. And we had some really great people. Like, Tristan, Dave Ganos,
No, yeah, I remember I know Dave.
um, yeah, Dan Dobish, who still does all kinds of stuff for all
Mhm.
different types of places. Marlon McRae, who ended up going on and he was actually like coaching, I think,
Oh, okay.
college
Yeah.
basketball. Yeah, we had some really, really great people. Obviously Scott. And then, Tristan moved on to ESPN.
Mhm.
Scott went on to ESPN. I think he went first.
Did he?
And
I remember Scott being there.
he wasn't there very long, but he was
Okay.
there. And then it was me at Sportsline, and then I ended up, obviously, Dave Richard was at Sportsline too,
Right. Mhm.
and then I ended up going to NFL. And then Jamie Eisenberg took my spot at CBS. He's still there. Jamie's a great guy.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Um, when I went to LA, I've never been to LA ever before. I'd been to California once, San Francisco when I was a kid. I'd never been to
Yeah.
LA. So it was a totally different like experience for
Environment.
me. I went there, Bob, I was making $70,000 a year living in Los Angeles. And I mean, geez Louise. I mean, that was, geez, almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy because I
Yeah.
was at NFL Network for like 15 plus years.
Yeah, that's that
And
you were there a long time. Yeah.
and so, I mean, so that's kind of how it all, started.
Yeah.
I got very lucky. I networked. I met so many awesome people. Like,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have even gotten to where I am, without like Jay Glazer. And I'm not trying to drop names, but these are like guys
No,
that really
yeah,
helped me.
right. I mean,
Like
obviously
Tim
you
Nance, Brent
yeah,
Jones, so many people along the way,
right.
and those guys especially who really, really helped me. I know Jay Glazer from when Jay Glazer had hair and wasn't all like, swole up. Like
Swollen.
way back when Jay was like with CBS.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So and Jay was like, he would always say that I'm his Padawan learner and he's the Jedi master.
Right, there
And
you
now
go.
Jay has obviously gone on to great things.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, it was cool, and that's where I started my first celebrity fantasy football league,
Right, which is
which was
always awesome.
the Gridiron Guru League, which was me, the non-celebrity,
Right.
Jim Nance, Brent Jones, Randy Cross, Gus Johnson, Dan Marino. I don't know if Boomer was in it. Boomer Esiason may have been in it.
Okay.
Bonnie Bernstein played, Phil Simms, like it was awesome. So a lot of Steve
Yeah.
Tasker, like
Right.
all the CBS, we would play. We actually had a big draft that they taped
Right.
at one of the CBS studios in New York City, and it was just awesome. It
Yeah.
was fantastic. Jim used to like show the standings of the league during broadcasts if he was doing well, which Jim typically did do well because he's very good at
Yeah.
fantasy.
Yeah.
And it was funny too because like Jim and I become really good friends, and so when CBS would go and do I mean, it used to be I think the LA Open, the Sony Open, whatever like that. Now I think it's
Mhm.
the Genesis Open.
Okay.
I would go out there and go see Jim, and I would go up in the tower and him and Faldo and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And I'll never forget it. He was like I was in the tower with him, and he's doing the live broadcast, and he's talking to Nick Faldo, and he goes, "Nick, you know what? The Guru's here. He's in the gallery." And Nick, was like, "Who the hell's the Guru?" Because that's what Jim would always call me.
Oh,
It was
okay.
Michael Fabiano. He basically invented fantasy football. I was like,
He
laughing at
invented
that.
fantasy
I was,
football.
all right, Jim. Let's not go this far.
Yeah, all right.
But yeah, I mean, I got blessed to really meet some great,
Yeah,
great people along the way. In and out of the industry, but all in the sports world. So
yeah. No,
that's
that's
kind of always happened,
an
man.
amazing story
Happy.
for sure. I mean, and I'm old enough to know all those people from the past. Not everybody knows the David Ganos and those kind of folks. And
Mhm.
it's so funny because when I started, I'll just fast forward to when I got to be in Roto Experts, which is where Scott went after
Yeah,
CBS.
yeah.
And so, Adam Ronis, Dr. Roto, Scott, gosh, I don't remember who else. So many other good people, but I have the kind of same similar story. So they had, of course, the morning show on Sirius XM back then. This was like,
Mhm.
I don't know, 2011. Um, and they're like, hey, we want you to come on every Friday morning at 9 o'clock or 9:15 just to talk about the consistency model. The thing was, is I was working for an accounting firm. So every Friday I would sneak into this conference room, lock the door, get on the phone, call the number, and then get on the air for 15 minutes and then go back
Mhm.
to work. But I would like you. I remember the first couple of times I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on national radio. Like everybody can hear me. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't say anything stupid, right? It's the same thing. You're
Yeah.
just like
Yep.
now it's like, yeah, it's no big deal. I go on serious, as a guest quite often. But Scott and I go right there doing the same thing. And yeah, so yeah, I always love seeing Scotty. He's trying to get in again for the Expo again this year. So hopefully he'll make it. But the one thing I have to ask you about, you didn't talk about, I want to talk about this draft, was the rock and roll one, man. That was got to be the coolest. I'm like,
Oh
how do
yeah.
I get to go to this? Because talk about all the rock stars that you had in this draft and where it was held. Because I was just like, when this happened, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the most ultimate thing ever.
Yeah. So obviously I worked for Sirius XM for a few years, and I had a lot
Right.
of friends at Sirius XM. And I don't exactly remember how I met Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm a metalhead, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I still listen to Motley Crue. Like, I
Oh
don't
yeah.
listen to
Yeah.
a lot of the crap that's
I'm right
out
there with
today.
you, brother.
I listen to 80s hair metal, and I am
Mm-hmm.
not I unapologetic about it. I don't
Oh
give a
yeah,
rap
absolutely.
cast. I don't
Hair
care.
Nation is my favorite station, man.
I love metal. Right. So I met Jerry and Mike Inez, who's the bass player from Alice in Chains, and they
Mhm.
have become such dear friends of mine.
That's
They are
awesome.
such great guys. So they run the Alice in Chains Friends Fantasy Football League, and Jerry
Right.
invited me to be in it. And so not only did I become friends with Jerry and Mike, but like Mark Wakefield, who's their manager, he works for Velvet Hammer. He manages Corn. I mean, like big
Oh,
time,
that's awesome.
great guy.
Yeah.
Became really good friends with him, and so I kind of help him run the league because it's a lot of work. So
Sure.
they've been running the draft every year on Sirius for I don't know how many years, but for a long time it was at Jerry's house.
Right. That was the like,
So
wait, what? It's like
dude,
control.
I got to tell I'll tell you a story about
Okay.
Jerry's house. So,
Okay.
um, Scott Ian from Anthrax, and although
Right.
Scott has never attended, But he's always been in. Vinnie Paul, God rest his soul, from Pantera, was in the
Yep.
league, and
Mhm.
actually the Vinnie Paul Trophy is dedicated to Vinnie. Over the years, I mean, Eric Dickerson has been in the league. We had the Bella twins, Nicole and Brianna,
Mhm.
who are like sisters to me.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny, they did go to Jerry's house, and Jeff Garland, who's also a good friend,
Yeah,
uh,
right, that was the other I knew
he
there
was
was somebody
not
some,
he was not
actor I could
politically correct when they were there because, Nicole and Brianna are beautiful girls, and
yeah,
so that was crazy. And then Miz, my
right,
boy,
The Miz,
he
right.
he, he's been involved, for years and years. Jerry O'Connell's in the league now. Slim Jim Phantom, he's in the league. Rich
Oh,
Eisen's been in the
from,
league. Stray Cats.
Stray Cats?
Yep.
Oh, okay, I was
What a
like, "Wait a
great
minute, I think
guy.
I know that name."
Such a nice guy.
Yeah,
And his wife, awesome. She's in the Eagles of Death Metal. I can't remember the.
okay.
She's so sweet. So, um, yeah, we would go to Jerry's house and have the broadcast, and then, be all of us. And
Right.
I've been in the league for I don't know how many years now. It's probably coming up on 10 years. There was a run where I won it like 2 years in a row, and then I was in the finals for the third year in a row. And I thought Jerry was gonna kick me out because he's like, screw this, he keeps winning. And you're the expert, and we don't,
Right, right.
but Mizanin beat me that year. That's
Okay.
one of the greatest accomplishments of his career, by the way. And so I've still been in, and
Yeah.
actually Scott Ian's won it. Duff McKagan is in the dude.
Yeah,
Duff
that's right, I remember
McKagan,
that was the other guy I
such
couldn't think
a
of, Duff,
freaking
yeah,
great guy. I
yeah,
love Duff. Such a nice guy.
yeah.
Like all these people are such good people. They're so
Mhm.
nice. I
Yeah.
I was I'll give you a couple of stories. And this is obviously when I lived in California, but I would go to Jerry's house all the time. Like me and Jerry and Mike and Miz, like we played golf. We have foursome.
Oh,
We
jeez.
would always play golf together. It was it was
So
it was
jealous.
great. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And so there was there some Sundays we would go to Jerry's house and watch football.
Mhm.
Jerry's a big football fan. He's a Steelers fan and Seahawks. And
Okay.
so Mike, I says, hey, come on over. We're going to Jerry's house, Miz.
Mhm.
And so, I picked him up. We went to Jerry's house. We were watching the games like with Duff, um, uh, Josh Richmond, who's a really great guy. Josh is like, he knows everybody. Like if you
Okay.
look up, he knows everybody. Robert Downey Jr., Johnny Depp, like he knows
Oh,
everybody. And so, we're all just hanging out at the house watching the games, and the door opens, like Jerry's front door opens, and look, I can't really tell who it is. A guy walks in the room. It's fucking Robert Downey Jr. I swear to God, dude. So, I like looked at Mike, and Mike looked at me, and we're like, "Holy shit,
yeah,
it's Iron Man!"
yeah.
And Robert Downey Jr. sat on the floor at Jerry's house and talked to everybody for like 3 hours, and he was cool. He
Man,
talked
that's
about, like,
awesome.
being in jail, like, all this he talked about everything, and he was dressed like he just came from a workout or something like it.
Yeah, right.
His son, Indio, I think his name was with him too. He's a
Okay.
musician, and like, they all know each other, and I was like, "Holy crap." Like, literally, like,
Yeah,
Mike, Mike's a big deal, like, people know Mike,
yeah.
and, and we looked at each other, and we were, like, starstruck.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
oh my
right, yeah.
god, we just hung out with freaking Robert Downey Jr. for like
Junior.
3 hours, and he's not a sports fan at all. I wanted to get him into the celebrity fantasy that I ran,
Yeah,
but he don't wanna he's not really into sports very much.
okay.
Um,
So you just
and
came to hang out?
he just came to hang out, and so because his son is a musician, and so
Oh,
he
I gotcha.
goes to Jerry, and,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that makes
so,
sense. Yeah.
Jerry's awesome. So then another time, Jerry would always, before COVID, I think he may have just had his first post-COVID birthday party at his house, like
Mhm.
earlier this year or the year before.
Okay.
And so Jerry would always have parties for birthday parties at his house.
Right.
And I would always go with my ex-fiance at the time and my stepson. We would bro, you want to see all the freaking like celebrities and rock stars at these freaking parties.
Oh, bad.
Like, oh, there's Sebastian Bach over there.
Oh,
Oh,
love Skid Row.
wait, wait. Steven Tyler. He kissed my girlfriend on the mouth. And then
And
I
you were
told
like,
Jerry, I'm like, Steven Tyler just made out with my girlfriend. And he's like, yeah, he does it to me too. I'm like, all right,
yeah,
I don't feel as bad then.
alright, so
Like all the guys from Alice in Chains,
right.
Duff is always there. There's like actors, Nancy Wilson from Heart. like when I tell you that it's like the who's who of metal. Stephen Piercy from Rat.
Oh,
Like oh
it's still my heart. Oh my God, this
I'm blanking. The
sounds
freaking
like my heaven.
bass player from Metallica. The bass player from Metallica.
Oh,
I can't
I
remember
can
his
see
name.
him.
Yeah,
I can see him. I
it'll
know
come.
exactly what you're talking about.
It'll come to me.
Robert
Trujillo. Yes.
Robert Trujillo,
So
right?
he was there. I mean, like all these celebrities and stuff. Like there's like comedians and like it's crazy.
Oh my gosh, dude, that
So,
is amazing.
one year. Now I love Journey,
Yeah,
and I think Steve Perry's one of the 5 best singers of all time.
yeah,
I love Steve Perry.
yeah.
And Matthew, my stepson, had a baseball game at 1:00, and so we didn't end up going to Jerry's until later on in the day that year.
Okay.
And so, like we we're there, we hang out, and we go home, and I'm looking on Instagram, and I see Sebastian Bach is there, and he's a picture with Steve Perry,
Oh no, and you
and I'm
missed it.
like, that's Jerry's kitchen.
Like,
I
oh
was like,
no.
so I texted Jerry. I was like, was Steve Perry at your house? He's like, yeah, but he had to leave early. I'm like, son of a bitch. I mean, it probably was good because I would have fanboyed and be like, I
Yeah,
love you,
right.
Steve Perry.
Hug him and
I would have went crazy and
oh
like,
yeah,
oh my God. But so I didn't meet Steve Perry, unfortunately. But I have met I'm like, all these people are so awesome.
yeah,
I've met
right.
so many cool people, whether it's been in
Mhm.
fantasy leagues. I mean, some of these people are like dear friends now. And people always
Yeah,
make fun of me because I'm name dropping. I'm like, they're my friends. So I want to mention them. You know what I mean? Like, so
yeah,
it is what it is. And another
yeah.
thing is like the wrestling. Like so many of my friends are WWE superstars.
Right, right,
Seth Rollins, Mike,
right.
Nikki and Brie. Like the list goes just on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah,
Kofi Kingston. I know all of them. I know all of
right.
them.
Well, the
They're
benefit of living in Los Angeles too. I mean,
right.
that's
Yeah,
that
exactly.
it's if they were, it's like me Hall of Fame weekend. Like they're
Right,
all
exactly.
there, and
Yeah.
I'm in my heaven of the best football players ever.
Yeah.
But I'm not hanging out at their house.
It's crazy, man. I mean,
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I hung out at Des Bryant's house.
Yes.
You
Wow.
know,
And he came in for the expo. You were there that
I
year,
know
right?
I wasn't there because of my
Oh, that
shoulder.
year you didn't make it. Oh,
Is he not coming this year?
well, no. I mean, ever since that year when he came in to promote his app, and then things kind of went a little weird over the last couple of years with
Really?
Twitter. So yeah, no, he hasn't. Sadly, I mean,
I'll text him. I'll
yeah,
see.
yeah. There you go.
Well, like, I
Tell him to
mean,
come back. Tell him
I
you invited him. Yeah, it's fine.
yeah, but even just like aside from like the celebrity people, no, like Bob Harris is one of my dear friends. I love Bob. He's
Hmm.
old and he's a curmudgeon, but he's salt of the earth, and I love him to death.
Yeah,
He's one of my
like we
best
all
friends.
do.
Tristan Cockcroft, I love him to death. He's one of my best friends. So there's people that are within the fantasy, and I got to be honest, like I'm not the best with. Yeah, I'm kind of like here, just away in Florida. I'm not the best at interacting with like a lot of the other people in the fantasy industry,
Mhm.
aside from because listen, I came up like Eric Carabell, and Barry were the
Mhm.
guys at ESPN, like or Brandon Funston.
Mhm.
So I grew up, I grew in the industry like with those kind of guys.
Right,
And so
sure.
there's a lot of great people now who are, younger and, I mean, JJ's JJ, I always say his name, Zach
Zach
Ryder.
Ryson? Yeah.
I love JJ. He's such a
Yeah.
sweet guy, really
Yeah.
nice guy. There's so many good people in the fantasy industry, now that I've, come to meet and stuff.
Sure.
But I've certainly a circle of really good friends just from being in the fantasy sports industry, and it extends out beyond fantasy into,
Mhm.
real football, Major League Baseball,
Right,
wrestling,
sure.
music. I mean, James Rode Rodriguez, who you probably will remember from Psych, is like dear friend
Mhm.
of mine. Like we've become really,
Yeah, I
really good
heard he's a
friends.
big fantasy fan. We
Oh,
gotta
he's
get
a
him to come.
massive. We're actually going next week. I'm going up to New York to do Scott Fish because he's in New York, and I
Oh, okay.
haven't seen him. Because typically, what we would do is we would go to California, because Matt Walsh from Trophy Smack would have the
Right.
LA event at his
Mhm.
headquarters, but now Trophy Smack has gotten so big that they have to go to a different building, and so they can't host this year. So I was
Oh,
like,
that's
well, then in that case, because I go out and see my stepson, and I have a lot of friends in California.
sure.
Lindsey Rhodes would go out and do it, and Jen
Mhm.
Piacenti, and some others. Liz Loza would go out there, but like I mean, now I'm in Florida. I'm just a straight shot up to New York. So, and James is going to be there. I haven't seen him since California
Okay.
last year. So I'm going to go and see him at Scott Fish, and then we're going to go do
Okay.
dinner. Blah
And
blah
then
blah
you're
blah.
gonna talk him into coming to the expo, right?
Oh my gosh! Listen, man, I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah. We'd
try.
love
I
to
mean,
have him.
he is again. I can't even tell you how good these people are. They're
Yeah.
such
Yeah.
nice people. Now, have I met people who are kind of a-holes like along the way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you run into
Yeah.
a-holes all the time. I mean,
Sure.
but for
Right.
the
Right.
most part, I've had such a positive experience with the people that I've met, whether it's been in the
Right.
fantasy industry, whether it's been the entertainment industry, and the sports. And I mean,
Right.
geez, like I play in a fantasy league with like a whole bunch of former baseball players, Matt
Right.
Holliday, Adam Wainwright, who again another guy, a friend of mine, such a great person.
Yeah.
Has used fantasy football on his platform to help those who are less fortunate than him.
Nice. Very
Getting
cool.
clean water to third kind. Like he's amazing.
Right.
I've been to St. Louis a whole bunch of times just to go see Wayno.
Yeah. No,
Luke
that's awesome.
Weaver, like Luke is such a great guy, and I'm a big Yankees fan. I actually
Right.
saw Luke in April in Tampa, and I'm going to see him hopefully in Miami next month because the Yankees are playing the Yankees are playing the Marlins in Miami. I think August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Okay.
My dad comes into town, and then I'll be flying to the Expo
Right.
towards the end of that week. But I just been like
Yeah.
really blessed. There's been bumps along the way
Sure. Well, and
in this
we all
industry.
had
There
that,
always
right?
are. But it's
Yeah.
been I mean, I can't,
So I
uh,
think this is the
I
perfect
can't say it.
segue, though, that you've talked about how celebrities, even outside the fantasy industry, but you also talked about how great the people are in our industry.
Mhm.
A lot of people have said to me, I'm not sure I want to go to the expo because, I'm on Twitter and there's trolls and there's people and they're assholes, and all this stuff. And I always go, they don't come to the expo. So kind of just, you kind of already said a little bit of that, but kind of expound on the people because we all know that you're a super nice guy, Bob Harris, and there's no egos there. In fact, most people are like, I talked to this guy and I didn't know he was, and then when I realized it was JJ Zacharias or it was Bob Harris or and you're like, oh, like I was talking to, and I'm sure they feel the same way about you. Like, holy cow, Michael Fabiano is going to come on one of my shows, and so kind of expound a little bit on that of for people who are thinking about coming to the expo and they're not sure just what your experiences have been at the weekend, the people, the events, the fun, the camaraderie that happens during that weekend.
No, I love talking to, folks, and I don't wanna say fans. I don't consider myself any kind of celebrity. I just give people fantasy advice and hope they win a championship. But I like to talk to the folks, and that's always fun,
Yeah.
when you go to the expo, especially, the event where, everyone's just kinda out there drinking, playing games, having fun, walking around and stuff like that, taking pictures with people and talking, and, sometimes somebody will come up and said, "Man, you were so dead wrong about this player, blah, 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 blah," and breaking balls. I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
trust me,
Right.
man.
Yeah. Hey, you're
I'm
wrong. You're
right
wrong.
more than I'm wrong, but I'm wrong a whole bunch of times because it's unpredictable a lot of the time."
Right. Right.
And so no, it's always a lot of fun. And the majority of the people that are going to be there are there to interact with the fantasy analysts and stuff like that, and talk. And people love to talk about their championships and how they did and how they picked up this player
Mhm.
off waivers. And oh my God, he helped me win a championship. And I used to watch you on NFL Network, or
Right.
whatever the case may be. They go to Bob and listen to him on Sirius XM. Whatever it is.
Mhm.
So it's always a lot of fun. I don't stay out too late. I'm telling you right now, once I hit 50, it's like, damn, if I'm out beyond like 11 o'clock, my ass is grass. I'm like, oh my God.
Well, that's
But
why
like
the parties end at 11
that's
because
right,
I'm
exactly. That's
61, so I'm right
yeah,
there with you,
exactly.
bro. It's
Like,
just like,
so
oh,
I give you another example. Don and Sally Kurjan. Do you
oh
know
yeah,
them? Okay.
sure.
Two of the nicest people in the
Oh,
world.
yeah.
I never knew who they were. I met them at one of the expos, and oh my God, they, like, go to the airport and pick me and Bob up and then
Yeah.
bring us
Oh, I
back to
know.
the
They're
airport,
amazing.
and we're friends now.
Yeah. Well, you
Like,
picked
we're
Don as your
yes.
fan favorite to represent you in the Fans Classic, and
Mhm.
then Bob pick Sally so
Yes.
that she could be in it as well. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how great
Yeah.
these people are, that Michael Fabiano and Bob Harris chose them as their favorite fans, folks, you have to meet the Curgins.
Oh,
They're
they're great.
amazing. They are.
They were on vacation in Florida a year or 2 ago or whatever, and I'm like, "Let's connect."
Yeah.
They came over, we went out to dinner with my aunt, who's, like, in her 80s,
There you
right,
go.
as I have family here, and I mean,
Yeah,
like,
sure.
they're great. They're, like,
Yeah,
such good people. I mean,
absolutely.
most of the people in the fantasy industry are awesome. And I've had more than my share of encounters with people who are just great, and they're very gracious
Mhm.
and nice, and they're happy to meet you and talk to you and pick your brain about things.
Mhm.
I that's why I like to go. I mean, again, I've missed a couple of them because
Yeah, right.
bad
Not because you
rotator
can't.
cuffs.
Yeah, right.
They're
Yeah.
both repaired now. I mean, listen, I still got another month. I don't want to mess anything up here,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but
Shh.
just like I don't want to, but I mean, it's a fun experience.
Mhm.
It's very cool to interact with, folks who you may have watched on television or listened to on radio, or maybe
Right.
you're listening to them on YouTube or whatever the case may be. Just to sit down and chat, for a few minutes.
Yeah.
It's always a lot of fun. Matt Walsh has been there. I don't know if he's going this year because his son's birthday is the
His
same
son's
day as
birthday is the
mine.
same day as yours,
Same day
yes,
as
and
mine.
hence he won't be there
Yeah,
again.
so he's not gonna be there, which pisses me off because I love Matt Walsh.
Yeah,
He's
we all do,
awesome,
sure.
such a great guy. But
Yeah,
like it's always I love people walking around with their championship belts from Trophy Smack and
mhm.
that kind of thing. Like
Right,
I
right.
absolutely love it. It's a really fun experience, and it's fun for me. It's fun for the fans, and then just on a personal note, I get to see my friends. I don't
Yeah,
get to see Bob very often.
right.
Is Jeff Ratcliffe going to be there this year?
Yeah,
Like
Jeff
I
will
don't
be
get to see
there, yeah,
Jeff, very very much, or
right.
JJ. A lot of the guys, like, I don't get to see
Andy
them.
Behrens,
And
yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, so it's awesome that I'm gonna be able to actually, like, see these guys, give them a hug. Bob, I'll probably grab his ass a couple of times, because that's how we are. He takes it the
Okay, I
wrong
mean, yeah,
way.
not there's anything wrong with that. I
I
just
tell him, "Bob, listen, just it's all love, but you take it easy, pal." You s
I love it, I
listen,
love it.
if
Well, and another
if you listen
thing
to
I
Bob,
think that
the conversations between me and Bob Harris, I mean, they're
yeah,
hilarious.
I'm sure they're interesting.
Yeah.
But it's also a great learning experience. So for all of the people that come, fans and content creators, it doesn't matter. Man, three different stages happen on that Sunday where you can hear everything from redraft to dynasty to best ball to whatever your genre is. Of course, we
Mhm.
do. I call it the Mount Rushmore of fantasy, where you and Bob and Marcus and JJ and Jeff all get up on stage. It's the first event of the day, just answering questions from the public. Talking about your favorite picks, your sleepers, your undervalues. And I always feel like that to me is like the highlight. That's why we do it first, because it's just like so awesome that you guys, you've got the best of the best on stage and listening to their things. I'm always taking notes, man. I want to learn as much as I can. I don't know everything. We all want to learn from each other. So it's always a great thing. So always appreciate you, Michael, being a part of this. Great to have you back, brother. I mean, I've missed you so much, just being there. Like you said, I know you have a blast with it. King's Classic, you love. You've had to do a couple on lines the last few years. So
Yeah.
no,
So it's gonna be good to
coming.
be there. That's a lot of fun too. I mean, I love historical NFL. Love it.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
know Don's all fired up because he was like, "Wait, I get to draft over there at Hall of Fame?" I'm like, "Dude, you're in, man." Like, I mean, I love that. I
yeah,
love the history of the NFL. I try to use it in my fantasy analysis. Some people think it's worthless. Some people think it has some value.
yeah.
But I love that stuff. And so being there, and again, you know, you go and you hang out, and not only do you get a great experience with the fantasy analysts that you followed for years and years and years, but you also get some knowledge, right? And
Hmm.
you get to pick their brain a little bit. You get to pick our like
Hmm.
I'll go pick Bob's brain. I'm like, Bob, who do you like at wide receiver this year? And then I'll draft the exact opposite. No, I'm just kidding, Bob. Um,
You'll snipe him in the draft right in front of him.
exactly.
That too.
So it's a lot of fun, and
Yeah,
it's great for for the fantasy football nerds and dorks out there like us. And honestly, we're the cool kids now,
that's
right?
right. We're cool.
We're the
Yeah,
cool
because
kids
we
now.
were cool. We were doing fantasy long before it was cool.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
god.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, listen,
yeah.
I had my nose in USA Today box score trying to figure out if I had, won a matchup in baseball. I mean, like that it was
Yeah.
a
No,
long, long,
I
long
started
time
in
ago.
'85, so I had a
Oh my
long
god,
stretch
yeah.
before I even got to like online. I'm like, this is heaven. Holy cow.
I know.
Um,
Yeah. I listen,
yeah.
I mean, like, people say, "Wait a minute, you had Troy Aikman on your fantasy team?" Like, okay, it wasn't that long ago. Geez, man, I know I'm, getting up there, but it wasn't
Yeah.
that
Well,
long.
that's the late
85.
1900s.
I mean, you're talking about Marino back, you're talking about
Yeah. No, actually,
that's way
Marino was
back
the
when.
first pick in our draft in '85. Yes.
So the first Gridiron Guru League, Dan was in it, and he drafted Mike Vanderjagt in the fourth round. I'll never forget that. I don't know what the hell he was doing. And another cool thing, I used to be able to go to the CBS studios for the NFL Today on Sundays.
Mm,
And Eric Mann was the producer back then, and I think it was like Jim, Dion was on there,
mm.
Boom, Dan, and I was in the green room with Dan and Boomer, and I think Shannon Sharp might have been there too. I
Okay.
don't remember who exactly else was there, but I was there when Peyton Manning broke Dan's record for touchdown passes. He
Oh
hit
wow.
Brandon Stokely in the back of the end zone there for
Hmm.
49, and Dan couldn't have been nicer about it. 48 touchdowns. Remember, I mean, we're talking guys. Go back and look at quarterback stats.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't see 50 friggin' touchdowns and 55 touchdowns. You just didn't see it. Like the
No.
stuff these guys are
You.
doing
In
this
fact,
year.
if you went
Now
over
they have,
30 in a year, you were a
I
superstar.
know
Yeah.
exactly. Like if you threw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, you're like a stud. That's what Favre,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know, like
Yeah.
Favre was awesome. So, Dan, and a lot of people think, and I think it's true, is that Dan changed fantasy football. And it wasn't big back then.
Hmm.
But when Dan goes out there and throws for 5K and 48 touchdowns, and no other quarterback is even sniffing that,
Right.
changed the way that people drafted their fantasy football teams way back when.
Right, right. No, you're right. I hear. Yeah, like you said, I remember that because, like you said, it was my buddy took him as the first pick. We
Mhm.
didn't know, you shouldn't draft a quarterback that early, but we just thought, well, he throws a lot of touchdowns, right? And he was
Yep.
worth it then. And the
Yeah.
thing was, he made it to the finals and lost. I forget the other team, but yeah, Dan only threw two touchdowns and whatever he lost.
Listen,
So.
and you know what? No matter what anybody tells you, fantasy football takes a lot of knowledge. It
Mhm.
takes a lot of research. You got to pay attention to what's going on. You got to stay on the waiver wire, but there's a lot of luck involved. Listen, I will always tell the story of how I won a fantasy championship with Matt Moore as my freaking quarterback one year. Like it just like Billy
Yeah.
Volek. That year, I think McNair got hurt and Volek was the backup and he went bananas like
Oh yeah.
for a
Hmm.
stretch of the season. Like, listen, but I mean, that's also part of the fun.
It's all
It's
part of the game, right?
unpredictable, but if you can hit on a guy like that, you remember Sam
Yeah.
Congato? Sam Congato, and I think he's a doctor now.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't know that name.
Okay, Sam Congato, like when I tell you that he was a backup to the backup to the backup to the backup in Green Bay,
Oh God.
there was a year where Amon Green got hurt, Najee Davenport got hurt, Tony Fisher got hurt, and Sam Congato ended up being the starting running back for the Packers. And I think it was a 4-game stretch. He was better than LaDainian Tomlinson. It was freaking crazy. It was crazy. Okay, do you remember Tyler Thigpen?
I do
Tyler
remember that.
Thigpen
Yeah,
was the
played for the
quarterback for
Titan
the
or
Kansas City Chiefs.
Oilers, Titans. I don't know.
Chiefs.
Oh, Chiefs.
He
Oh,
was a
okay.
top 10 fantasy quarterback one year.
Oh,
Tyler Thigpen. You're like, what the hell? What?
yeah,
So those are the fun stories, and people like to
yeah.
tell those stories,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
at the
I
expo.
mean,
You get together and you chat about that kind of thing, and it's fun.
I won a title with Olandis Gary because I picked him up like week 2 or 3, and he like scored. He was like Mr. Consistency. He scored a touchdown like every
Well,
week.
remember, no matter who the Broncos running back was for
Yeah,
like years, like
yeah,
Reuben Drones was a fullback
right. I
for
remember
the
that name.
Lions, and he came to Denver and he had 1 or 2 good years, but then I think it stopped. Like Monte Hall stopped the whole thing.
Mm,
I remember we all thought, Monte Hall is going to be in the Broncos offense and blah, 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 blah. And he
yeah.
sucked. And I think that was kind of like the beginning of the end of the whole, like
Yeah.
Mike Shanahan, can put any back in the backfield and he could be a star. You had
Right.
Orlando Scary, you had Tatum Bell. TD obviously was, he was great.
Right, sure,
Hall of
right,
Fame.
right.
Mike Anderson.
Oh, yeah,
These guys are not
remember
great running
Anderson.
backs, but you put them
Yeah.
into the backfield in Denver, and boom, you got something.
You got some. Well, we got about 15 minutes left, so let's talk about some fantasy football, people. What do you want to start with? How about your favorite undervalued guy right now? Now I know ADPs will change, but
Yeah.
who's a guy that
Um,
as you're looking that you just kind of like, I'm really into him this year because I can get him as my third receiver, third running back, whatever.
I love Justin Fields.
Oh, okay.
I love
There you go.
Justin Fields. And I mean, you could get him in the double-digit rounds. Justin
Oh, yeah.
Fields, in the 2 years that he was in Chicago as a starter, 17.7 points per game, 1 year, and then the other year, he was a top, 8 quarterback,
Hmm.
rushed for over 1,100 yards 1 year. Now he's the Jets. He has very little competition, if any, for the
Right.
quarterback spot. I mean,
Right.
that's gonna be his job.
Yeah.
He has a great rapport, not a repertoire, a rapport with Garrett Wilson because they went
Because they
together,
were college
at
roommates,
Ohio
right?
State.
College teammates. Yeah.
And they gotta run the ball.
Hmm.
Who are their wide receivers out after Garrett Wilson? I mean, they ain't that much. They're gonna run the ball. And Justin Fields, I don't care how bad a quarterback can be as a passer. Tim
Hmm.
Tebow was a freaking fantasy starter. That guy
Right.
used to throw dead ducks. Okay.
Hmm.
But because he would run with the football, he was a star. I would not be shocked if Justin Fields was a top 10 quarterback this season
All
at
right.
all. What's stopping him from running for 700 yards and, 4
Oh,
to 6 touchdowns?
yeah. Maybe they'll try the tush push.
Maybe. But I mean,
Yeah.
he's going double digit rounds.
Yeah.
Even last
Except,
year.
you're going to love this, except at the Chicago Live Scott Fish Bowl in my league, there was Justin Fields went at the end of the second round.
Well, but I mean, you could start 2 quarterbacks though, right?
Yeah, right. You can, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was just like, we all kind of went, huh? Like Joe Burrow was still on the thing.
Dude,
Jalen
I
Hurts was
love
still,
him. He's not a
hey,
great, real quarterback, and fantasy's
yeah.
fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
I like going after Isaac Garendo late because I don't believe
Yep.
Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy. I
Hmm.
like going after a Cedric Tillman late because
Yeah. I
he
love Tillman.
flashed last year. I don't know that quarterback. I hope it's Joe Flacco in Cleveland. I really do
Yeah.
hope it's Joe
Right.
Flacco.
We
I hope
hope.
it's not
Yeah.
Kenny
Right.
Pickett. Brenton, get yourself some Strange in Jacksonville.
Hmm.
He popped a little bit last year,
Right.
little bit, but now that Evan Ingram's gone,
What do
he's
you
got an
think
opportunity.
of Elijah Moore in Buffalo? Can he
Uh,
finally be the player we thought he was going to be coming out of college?
yeah, so it's a good fit, but you've got Keon Cole. I think Khalil Shakir is obviously the guy that you're
Yeah,
gonna
I
want to
mean
get
he's
there
the
in
one. I
Buffalo.
get that. Yeah,
But he could definitely etch out a role.
right.
Now, there were times last year where he actually had some value, but he just wasn't consistent enough, and then the Browns just all went to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah,
But he's probably like a late round type of
yeah. I
flyer,
mean, certainly
wide
a late
receiver
round
5 type, and
flyer.
that's kinda what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so, I mean, off the top of my head, those are some of the guys that, I'd like to have late.
Hmm.
And at running back, I don't see maybe you disagree with me. I don't see a breakout candidate who's a veteran, who wouldn't need someone to get hurt in order for them to break out. So, I see Jalen Warren's out there, but I mean, they drafted Caleb
What about
Johnson.
Javante Williams in
No,
Dallas?
no,
No. Okay. Just
no.
asking
I
because
listen. I hate. Listen, I've been a Cowboys fan my whole life. I threw in the towel in the offseason after they freaking hired Brian Schottenheimer. Listen, I'm always
right.
going to love the Cowboys. I'm always going to follow the Cowboys. I hate Jerry Jones. I don't want to get into it because it pisses me off.
Okay.
But Javante Williams, and I liked him coming out of college, and he
Mhm.
showed some flashes, and then the knee happened,
Yeah. Right.
and he wasn't right last year. Dude, I mean, I was looking at some
But I
recently.
mean, Rico Dotto did well. I mean, he was
I
top
know, but I think
24.
Rico Dotto's better than Javante Williams, and Rico
Well, and
Dotto.
maybe he is, but
But
yeah.
Rico Dotto also, there was nothing behind him last. Ezekiel Elliott was
No,
a
I
shell.
understand that. But they let
So
him walk.
no, right. So listen, I mean, is his ceiling a flex starter?
Yeah, I
Maybe.
mean, let's think Kings Classic where you got
Right,
two running backs and
right.
three flex.
Look, I was looking at ADP data at Underdog. You
Mhm.
know who's one of the highest risers? Miles Sanders. And so I crapped on Miles Sanders, and I was right. After he left Philadelphia, I said he ain't gonna do jack, and he didn't. And everyone was like, "You're crazy.
Yeah,
He's not that good."
it's not
And
that
now
good.
people, but in a platform like the Kings Classic,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
so
mean,
the fans classic is gonna be the same way. We're gonna run it the same way, so
yeah.
that it's, 14 teams, same setup, same scoring, just like our league. So yeah, so we're like, for those who are gonna play in that fans classic, how do you attack the league when you've got 14 teams and you've got
Mhm.
three flex and the usual two running backs, three receivers, one tight end?
Uh, you got to get a little bit lucky. You got to hit somebody on the waiver wire. So, I mean, obviously people, will occasionally have like an amazing draft where they don't have to worry about that kind of thing, but it's few
Mhm.
and far between. But
Right.
you really, you make trades. I love making trades. Trades is one of my
Mhm.
favorite draft and trades. Like, boom, 1A,
Yeah.
1. I love those two aspects of fantasy sports. But you really got to go and grab guys that have at least a little bit of something, maybe
Right.
if everything sort of falls
Right. If the
correctly.
guy in front of him gets hurt. I had Raheem Mostert 2 years ago when he broke out
I mean, that's
for his big
crazy,
year.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
And
that
I
that
got
was
him for like $2 in the auction draft. Yeah.
that may have been the craziest 21 touchdown season of all time.
Yeah. Right.
Raheem
Even I
Mostert,
was like, what is going on here?
right? It's like Brandon Lloyd. Remember that year Brandon Lloyd was
Mhm.
like one of the top, if not the top
Yeah.
wide receiver in fantasy football. Like, what the hell was that? And Kyle Orton was the quarterback in Denver that year. I was like, what the hell is going on? So,
Or Philip
crazy
Lindsay or yeah, those guys.
crazy stuff, kind of
Yeah.
happens like that. But when you're doing these drafts, you got to go for like maybe the hidden ceiling type. It's not maybe not
Mhm.
hidden. It's
Right.
there's a blockade to it, but it's possible for that player to break through it. Whether it means somebody gets hurt, or whether it means he just performs, so well to the point where he earns maybe a few more snaps here or there, a few more targets,
Mhm.
a few more touches here and there, and you've got to look at that kind of thing. So when you look at breakout running backs, I don't see any veterans that could break out, but somebody's got to get hurt. If
Yeah.
James Conner gets hurt and he's 30, Trey
Yeah.
Benson. Okay. Well, that's a guy maybe I can get late and sit him on my bench and we'll see what happens. Guys at Grendo, same thing. Sit him on
Yeah.
my bench. Let's see what happens. When
Yeah.
Christian
Ray
McCaffrey
Davis
gets hurt,
behind James
boom.
Cook.
Right. Ray Davis. I mean, so that's kind of what looking at running back situations where these guys are not super durable or they're getting older. Workload could decline. If they've been durable, maybe the durability declines.
Mhm.
You're looking at that kind of thing, and then a wide receiver. I mean, okay, I'll give you one. Calvin Austin.
Yeah. Right.
Who's the Robert Woods is the number two. Now the problem is in Pittsburgh, they're going to run 12 all day long, and
Right.
they're going to have Fryermuth and Jonnu. And Jonnu actually ran more perimeter routes than any tight end in the league last year.
Mm.
So maybe they line him out wide, and
Yep.
maybe on a quarter or so of his routes.
Right.
But I mean, Calvin Austin, like there's Bob Harris would say there's a path to workload.
Yep.
And with Calvin Austin, there's a path to targets
Right.
because I mean, their
Yeah.
number
What else is
two
there, right?
wide
Outside of
receiver is not
Metcalf.
Robert Woods was really good in his time, but he's past his prime.
Yeah.
So those are and you also you don't want to miss because if you miss in a big league like that, it's gonna hurt.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna hurt. Um, that's why I don't want anything to do with Christian McCaffrey. Listen. He would have to fall to me at the end of the second round for me to even think about it.
Right.
This
And that
guy's
ain't
played
happening.
7 or fewer games in 3 of the last 5 years, and people are drafting him in the first round. You freaking crazy. Well, they're just more bold than me. I'm not gonna take that kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
I'm not gonna take that risk.
Yeah.
So, I also, you wanna take players who are consistent, as, you would certainly
Mhm.
know about those
Yeah.
players. But you also want to mix it in with guys who could, break the ceiling and Marvin Mims Jr., for example. You
Mhm.
know what?
Right.
Showed some
Right.
flashes at the end of last year. Maybe
Right.
he ends up taking like the next step in Peyton's offense and becomes a value because you're going to be starting guys like that,
Mhm.
in the Kings
In
Classic.
that league.
You're
Yeah. Heck
100%
yeah.
gonna be starting guys like that. You're definitely going to
Yeah.
at all the positions. And
Yeah.
that's why it's fun. I mean, the first year I was ever in the Kings Classic, I won the damn thing. I got
Yeah.
the belt somewhere around here. I don't know. I got all
Yeah.
these. I want, and then but it's tough. Like there's been years where I didn't make the playoffs
Right.
because you're playing against Sharks, and you have one bad injury or
Yeah.
a
And
couple of
there's
picks
nothing on the waiver wire.
go sideways. There is shit on the waiver wire. There is nothing on the waiver wire at
Yeah.
all.
Right. Nothing.
So you got to either make a trade or hope that somebody
Or
on
you
your
get
bench.
lucky. Like I got lucky. I got Jonnu Smith last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you probably drafted him double-digit rounds, right?
No, I actually got him in the waiver wire, but he had his
I
first
mean, there you
decent
go, even
week,
better.
and I paid like $6 for him. And I thought, well, maybe he'll have a couple good weeks, and then he just goes off.
Unpopular opinion. I hate fab leagues. I play in them. I hate them. And you know why? Because I have so many freaking leagues, and having to put in the fab for all the different leagues, I'm saying it's like, oh God,
Yeah.
I want to have a social life in football season. It's not
No,
going to
it's not
happen
happening.
because I got to put in fab bids. And listen, most people love fab, and I
Right.
should love fab because I'm fabs, but
That's
I
right.
don't because it
Named
takes
after
too
you.
much time. That's the same thing with like auction. I don't do the auction because I don't want to spend the whole time doing an auction. Auctions are fun,
Mhm.
but like they're very time consuming. And
Yep.
maybe I'm just lazy. I'm traditional. The NFL doesn't draft with an auction. I don't want to draft with an auction. The NFL
Think how
doesn't
much
bid on
fun
free
that would
agents.
be.
I don't want to bid on free agents.
Wouldn't that be fun one year if they did that?
What, do it in auction?
No, yeah, the NFL draft. Like,
Oh my God.
here's your money, and so you put up Ashton Gente for bid, and then I think it would be
I mean,
amazing to
it would
watch.
be interesting. There's no question about that. It would definitely be interesting. It would definitely be like, I don't like what the NBA does with the lottery. If a
Yeah,
team
right,
stinks, they should get the first pick.
right. If you're dead last, you get first pick. Why
I
are
mean,
you putting
right? Like,
in
remember, like the
ping pong balls?
Spurs? They end up getting Tim Duncan. They had David Robinson. How the hell does that work? That's
We got
bull.
LeBron,
Right. I mean,
and we were supposed to have like what 1.5% chance.
it makes, I hate
Yeah,
that. I can't
I
say
know.
that, but I am a traditionalist.
Yeah, I
If
hear
you
you.
were a crap team the year before, you get one of the higher picks. That's
Right.
the way that it should work.
Yep.
I mean, maybe people are going to call, hey, Fabiano's the guy who's angry man, get off my lawn, screaming at the clouds like Grandpa Simpson. I don't care. That's kind of just what I like.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, we got to stay old school. So,
Yeah.
well, Fabs, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you coming here to just chat about everything. Loved the amazing career and stories you had. I'm sure we'll have to talk more at the expo about some of the fun things at Jerry Cantrell's house. Tell me where they can find you, and then we'll take it out from there.
Obviously, over at Sports Illustrated, si.com/fantasy. I've got so much content up there. It's ridiculous. And I'm just going to continue to build and build and build and build and build on it. Twitter, X, whatever the hell it's called, at Michael_Fabiano, Instagram, at Michael_Fabiano_ because Michael. So there's a Michael Fabiano who's an opera singer.
Oh,
And believe it or not, when I had a show on SiriusXM, I interviewed him. So Fabs interviewed Fabs. It was very
that's
strange.
cool.
It was like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
I'm on TikTok at Michael_Fabiano, believe it or not, with the kids. We're
There
getting
you
the
go.
Riz and all that kind of stuff going on.
Cool.
You know what Riz is, by the way?
No, not at all.
Yeah, okay. Well, so you got to, you're
I,
not,
I thought it
you're
was another wrestler. I thought
or
maybe like
one
that was Mrs. Partner or
Bob
something.
Lung. You're very cringy. Like this is how the kids talk these days. You're very mid.
Sorry, I'm so
That's
uncool.
from my teenage stepson.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook and the Fantasy Football Forecast on Westwood One. That will begin also at the beginning of September. And I'm doing a podcast on the Locked On Network. It's all Dynasty. Myself and Marcus Moshe, who's freaking awesome. Locked
Yep.
On
He's
is
coming to the
awesome.
expo. Yep.
Marcus yes, he will be at the expo. He's actually, I think he's going to be sitting in with me and Bob when we do our draft. And I think he's doing an online draft. Marcus is great.
Yep.
Big Cowboys fan.
Cool.
So that's where you're going to be able to find me. And
right.
I'm going to be everywhere. I'm going to be sick of myself. Also, there's some big stuff happening at Sports Illustrated that I can't get into yet, but as soon as it does happen, I will let y'all know. But there's some big things going on at Sports Illustrated.
Looking forward to that.
And it's not Livy Dunn, on the cover of the website or the Sports Illustrated.
Or
That's a good
Sweeney.
thing. It's not. Oh my goodness gracious! Let's not even talk about
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Tom Brady is becoming even more of a hero of mine if some of those rumors are true.
Oh, really? Okay. I
Oh
got
my
you,
goodness
brother.
gracious.
All
Let's
right.
now
Well,
we're off the rails.
yeah, I got you. All right. Well, thanks, Fabs. Once again, folks, get your tickets. July 15th, price goes up big time. So get them before you can. $95 right now for the whole weekend pass. Hang out with Fabs. Hang out with Bob Harris. Hang out with Marcus Grant. Hang out with all of us. You're not going to regret it. Grab all your friends, throw them in a car, come to Canton, Ohio. You'll have a blast. So for Mike Fabiano, I'm Bob Lung. Take care. God bless. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching. Lock in your 2025 football tickets now at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. Hit subscribe and check out one of these excellent @FF Expo videos next.